Hey, boys and girls, happy Tuesday. I hope everybody's doing well. So, yesterday we continued learning about how air pressure affects the weather. So, I hope you found that Ed puzzle and those videos helpful to learn about air pressure and the barometer. But air pressure is only one piece that affects the weather. Another large piece is the temperature, or how hot or cold it is, and something called the water cycle. Now, we're going to begin to study more about the water cycle this week, and we're going to start that today. So, the attached document today is all about the water cycle. So, you notice in the title, the water cycle, we have that word cycle, which is something that keeps repeating itself over and over again. If you think back to our geology unit, we also had something called a rock cycle, which also repeated over and over again and showed us how rocks change from one form to another. So the first part of this document has some notes about the water cycle. Now, the water cycle is also known as the hydrologic cycle, but basically it's the changing and movement of water on the Earth's surface, above the Earth's surface, which would be in the atmosphere, and below the Earth's surface as well, down in the crust. So again, it involves changing from one form to another and the movement of water throughout the Earth's surface, inside the Earth, and also up in the Earth's atmosphere. One thing to keep in mind, the second little note here where my mouse pointer is that water is not created or destroyed. We don't make water, we don't destroy water. Instead, it just keeps changing forms and locations. So basically, we've had the same amount of water on this planet since the beginning of time. There's no more and no less, it just changes forms. And for humans, we need it in that liquid form. So there might not always be the same amount of liquid water, but overall, the same amount of water has always been here. Now, I'm sure this is also not unfamiliar to you, but anything can exist in four different states of matter. So water can be a solid like ice, it can be a liquid like the water we drink, or a gas like I'm sure you've experienced like fog outside, that's gas in water form. And there's also a fourth state of matter called plasma. So, your first task today dealing with the water cycle are a couple think about questions. So, the think about questions today are, where does rain come from? I'm sure we've all experienced rain. And how is it made? So, as you continue down, there's two spots here. Don't Google these, don't look them up. Just kind of in your mind right now, complete the sentence and write down, I think rain comes from, and just write a little bit about where you think it comes from. Then the next one, number two, I think rain is made or formed when. So, why do we even get rain? How is it made or formed? What is your idea of how this might happen? It's okay if you're wrong for questions one and two. It's just think about and kind of jot down what your thoughts are. Then we're going to scroll down some more and we have a water cycle diagram. All right, so there's many different diagrams out there that describe the water cycle. This is just one of them. But if you notice that the cycle, if you follow my mouse pointer here, it moves in a circle. They call it a cycle for a reason. If you follow those arrows, it's a circular movement. And the main components of the water cycle are you have this upward arrow called evaporation. Now, evaporation is basically when liquid water, as you can see down here in the ocean, liquid water gets heated up, and it's going to get heated up by our friend the sun. And when it gets heated up enough, it evaporates, and you see this arrow going up, or turns into gas. All right, so evaporation is liquid turning into gas and rising. So it's getting hotter. Once it rises up into our atmosphere, the higher up we go, it gets colder. So that heated gas begins to cool and turns back into a liquid. Now, the opposite of evaporation, if you look up here, there's a word called condensation. Condensation is when gas turns back into a liquid. And all these little liquid droplets gather up here in the sky and form these things called clouds, which I'm sure you've seen. So condensation forms clouds. Now, eventually the clouds, they're going to become too heavy or saturated, like a sponge gets too much water in it. It can only hold so much. And the clouds are going to get too heavy and saturated, and gravity basically causes those liquid droplets to fall. So down from the clouds, we have something called precipitation. Now, there's many different types of precipitation. I'm not going to tell you what they are right now because one of your questions will be to Google types of precipitation, but there's probably, I don't know, 3 to 5 different types that you've experienced as well. So precipitation falls from the clouds. Now, this whole process repeats itself when the water collects back on the Earth's surface. It can collect in oceans. Kind of oceans are the biggest bodies of water on the planet. So a lot collects in the oceans, rivers, lakes, streams, puddles. A lot of it runs down mountains and across the Earth's surface and eventually gets to the oceans. So it collects, and then that process continues all over again. All right, so that's basically the gist of the water cycle: evaporation, condensation, precipitation, and the collection of the water again. There's some other things involved as well that we'll get to eventually, but these are the kind of the main pieces. Now, again, the oceans cover most of Earth's surface, so they're going to be a huge part of the water cycle and also a huge overall part of weather. All right. So after you get a chance looking at this diagram, there's a bunch of questions down here that you can answer as well. Anything that's multiple choice or true and false, you're welcome to highlight the answer. And there might be a couple where you might have to type a short answer as well. All right. So try your best. Use the diagram. I hope you listen to me going over some things because a lot of answers were in that as well. And make sure you turn this in when you are done. And that is the work for today, for Tuesday, all about the water cycle.